Okay, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning,
Okay,
sir.
welcome to the training course for instructors. This is called IMO Model Course 6.09. You will notice that it is numbered, no? Model Course 6.09, because this is how courses are organized by the International Maritime Organizations. And how they do it, why is it numbered like that? Like 3.12 is training course for assessors. Probably it's their system of doing it. Okay? So anyway, I am very thankful that you are here because you would like to join the maritime industry, particularly in training and education, and you have that noble intention of being an instrument for the improvement and development of the maritime industry in the Philippines. So thank you for that, and I salute especially the officers who have the intention. I'm sure there will be time that you would not want to work anymore, but you still would want to work and join the maritime industry in any way you can, because for all you know, the maritime industry is a very huge industry. Why? Because there are lots of things that you can do here. For people who have not been on board like me, then it provides a lot of opportunities for us. Number one, you can get into teaching. This is your intention now. You can go to assessment, you can go to consulting, you can go to networking, you can go to auditing, you can sell cell phone loads, you can do a lot of market. You can go to medical referrals, review centers, and a lot. Okay. Now the problem in the maritime is because everybody knows everybody. You have to qualify yourself. You have to uh, make a name here, because it becomes smaller when you change your name, because everybody knows everybody. And then if you mess up in one company, then it's just a phone call or a text away to verify your performance, how was your story in another organization, and then when you join them, then of course people will talk about you. So I would suggest, and maybe I can recommend, that you qualify yourself, make yourself skilled and equipped with the different requirements of how it is to teach, how it is to become assessor, especially on how you behave. In day one, you have talked about the qualities or attributes of an instructor, right? So how do you dress yourself? Make sure that you look like a teacher, you do not look like a seafarer. What's the difference? So you do not look like a seaman, you look like a teacher. And it is very noble, because even if you grow old and you retired from your profession as a teacher, they still call you a sir. Okay? So if you are a captain and you retire from work, maybe people will no longer call you a captain, because you're a captain or a master of the ship. But if you are a teacher, even when you die, they call you a teacher. That's very noble. Okay? Now, one of the most important part of being a teacher is the lesson plan. Because we call it the Bible of the instructor. Why is it the Bible? Because it gives direction on how he is going to perform the different activities. It suggests your intention, because we call it intended learning outcome, or the learning objective. Why do you want to hold the session? Why do you want what do you want to teach? What do you want your students to know about the lesson for the day? It also suggests the type of assessment. How are you going to test your students is included in the lesson plan. Because if your intention is, for example, at the end of the session, the students should be able to explain. So what type of assessment you are going to give? It's possibly essay test, sentence completion, or just simply question and answer. Okay? So if your intended learning outcome is, at the end of the session, the student should be able to enumerate the different types of navigation. Okay? So what type of test you are going to give? Enumerate. So in other words, your assessment is enumeration. So in other words, there are lots of magic or amazing things that may happen if you write your lesson plan. Okay? Of course, there are different parts of the lesson plan. There are different types of the lesson plan. For purposes of training, we are going to adapt a uniform and standard lesson plan. Now, when you get into actual teaching, you will be guided by the organization that you will join. If it is a maritime school, now DepEd has a requirement for that special form. If you go to a training center, the form will be according to the quality management system form. Okay? So, for purposes of training, we will adopt a uniform and standard, and acceptable standard. Okay? So we're talking about the lesson plan. Okay? But before that, let's talk about how are you going to do teaching approaches and strategies using a lecture and question and answer method. Okay, so what is a lecture? Okay, so when you deliver a lecture, it has to be in consonance and congruent to the lesson plan that you have made. So it is often referred to as the lecture method or presentation or talk and talk. Okay. So what happens in the lecture? It can facilitate effective learning by conveying key facts, concepts, and principles. So that's why you are here, no? Because I am confident that you have a lot of information on your head. Why? Because you have been trained, you went to training school, maritime schools. You are bombarded with a lot of training programs before you finally board. You are subjected to a lot of training updating courses, even if you are actively boarding. And then you are also bombarded with a lot of examinations, right? In order to measure your competencies and your performance on board. But when you get into teaching, you have to know the principles. How do students learn? How do adults learn? How do you make examinations? What is the basis for your choosing of how many items for test 1, how many items for test 2, how many items for test 3, or something like that? Because you were trained to man the vessels, to operate the vessels, to consolidate cargoes. You see, to observe all safety measures on board, but never in your life you were taught how to teach or maybe how to make examinations. Even if you are bombarded with a lot of exams, hindi nyo alam paano ginawa yung exam. Di ba minsan nga inis na inis kayo? Because you take the examination, you say, ano to? Bakit ito binigay sa test? Hindi naman namin pinag-aralan. At ngayon, kayo na yung pagagalitan ng estudyante nyo. Okay? Because you may possibly be doing the same thing. And the reason why you are here is because you would like to know the principles. And you would like to apply the principles when you get into teaching, because these are actually acceptable standards which have been tried in many countries, especially the advanced countries or the West, or how do they call it? We imitate, we pattern, we do the same thing for systems and principles that have worked in other countries that have proven to be effective. Okay, and this is what we are also doing now. Remember, the IMO Model Course 6.09 is being used now because it has been tested, it has been tried, studied, and carefully researched, because this is what the industry needs. So lahat ng ituturo yung subject ay model courses if it is for marina accreditations or for endorsement for you as a seafarer para sumakay ng barko, and you are going to do the same, right? But if you are going to teach any other courses other than the STCW required courses, then you actually do not need IMO Model Course 6.09 certificate. But you need the skills in teaching. And what are these? You need your communication skills. How good are you to deliver? In international requirements for delivering IMO model courses and STCW required courses is the English language. And how is your English? And you can never claim now, oh, I'm sorry, because we are seafarers and this is how we talk. Excuse me, you are no longer a seaman now. You are now a teacher. And therefore, there is no excuse for not speaking the English language the right way. Number 1, communication skills. Let's go to number 2, your facilitation skills. How do you stand here? How do you deliver? How do you use your gestures? And how do you talk? How do you dress? How do you appear? And how do you control or manage your students? Because we call it classroom management. Okay? How do you manage your class? How do you control? Because there may be, like for example, you are a third officer and you have a master or chief engineer student, and they will try to outsmart you, and this is a common behavior in the maritime, and I have experienced that many times. Okay? Example, I was a speaker in HASMAT, in a conference of Philippine Transmarine Carriers. Philippine Transmarine Carriers is one of the leading shipping company in the Philippines, which employs about 30,000 seafarers at one point in time. I was invited as a speaker for hazardous materials. So one of the participants, which was a shipmate now, is a friend of mine, and he is working with Marina, I do not want to mention the name, asked me, "Sir, are you a chemical engineer?" I said, "No." "Are you, have you been on board as or a chemical tanker?" Or "No." Sabi niya ganun. "So what right do you have to teach hazardous materials?" I said, "I don't know. I was invited as speaker and I'm paid a lot of paisa." So I don't think that PTC is going to hire somebody who does not know about hazardous materials. Okay? And here comes the conference. And I was talking about CFR 14, which is entitled transportation of the U.S. Requirements. Okay? I was talking about the different hazardous materials, the different types, packing, labeling, handling, shipping requirements, etc., documentation. And then, why do you know about it? Because I am the author of HASMAT course. And you should know that. Together with Miss Teresa Villar Inocencio, I did the course, and it's being used in the Philippines now. So of course, I did my research. Why I am saying this? Because if you are going to teach something, your facilitation skills, your platform skills, your communication skills will be in place if you know something you're talking about. So you are not going to teach something you do not know, right? So how do you put that in place? Study the subject matter. Learn about it. If you are given a load, I was in the public school for 7 years, and I was given a subject, values education. I am a graduate of psychology, of education, of Master in Education, Doctor of Education in Educational Administration, Doctor of Philosophy in Humanities, and now finishing my Doctor of Philosophy in Maritime Management. Okay? Where in the world did I have the value education subject when I was studying? Wala. There is no subject value education. And then suddenly, I am teaching in high school, and then I was given a subject, value education. So if you are, for example, if you are a chemical engineer and you board ships and you are given different tasks in a chemical tanker, and then suddenly you decided you do not want to board anymore and you would like to teach, and then you are given a subject, HASMAT course. Okay? Will you accept it or not? Of course you will. Okay? Now, just because you are a chemical engineer does not mean that you know CFR transportation, because you may be working in a different area. Okay? So what do you have to do? Study it. Learn it. So when you face the class, good morning, I'm your instructor for today, and our topic is something about the different types of dangerous cargoes. So probably a chemical engineer have studied that lightly. But if he is not intended for ships, then he does know about it, because he may be into other chemicals. Did you get it? So what you need is the facilitation skills, your communication skills, and how are you going to do it. But learn the subject matter. Okay? So the subject matter is very crucial before you get into teaching, because I said I can teach anything except math and science. So just give me the subject. Sometimes I get invitations, "Sir, we have a seminar and our topic is something about customer relations. Can you talk about it?" Of course. Because you know, it's money. So what do I have to do? I have to do a research. It's very easy now. That's why it is a requirement. Number one, you have supposed to be computer literate. So how many do not know computers? So it's never too late to learn. You know what? I'm learning from my kids and my grandkids. I have 4 kids and I have 13 grandchildren. I have a 3-month-old granddaughter, and have a 2-month-old granddaughter. In this pandemic, I have 2 grandkids. Okay? And then, I am learning from them, even on games. I do not know how to operate this gadget. The first time that I bought a MacBook, my God, it's a hell to me. And I have a lot of regrets. So why did I buy this? Because my son, the eldest one, was very angry. I have 7 laptops back down already. Okay, so my son was saying, why do you have to buy cheaper ones and then it does not last for long? For example, if you have Acer, if you have HP, ASUS, these are all disposables. I'm sorry to say that. So value is a little bit, but it's also outdated. Okay, so make sure that you are computer literate. Why? Because the maritime industry is already digitalized. A lot of programs, a lot of lessons, a lot of trainings, etc. And you should know at least PowerPoint. You should know at least Word. You should know at least what? Excel. Because these are all what is being used. And of course, the different programs applicable on ships. Because for all you know, your students may be even advanced than you. You are saying something and the students have a lot of information already. You cannot fool them. They can even tell you, oh sir, you're telling a lie. Because that is already updated. I conducted one training for the IMDG code. Chief Engineer Amaro, do you know him? He is a former Marina administrator, is my friend. He's a business partner and we work together in quality management system projects. He was one of my speaker in my show. And he told me, Dr. Bugs, your reference is already updated. I'm talking about the IMGD code. See? Because the audience may have advanced information. And if you are not into computers, then you are absurd. And you are out in the maritime industry. So I would suggest learn the craft. Okay? It's never too late to learn. Especially we will never know that things will go back to normal as we do before. Okay? So, let's see. When you do a lecture, you present an information. Okay? So, it's the main topic for today. The problem is, how are you going to present it? So, at first, you are going to tell the audience what you are going to tell them. So, class, our lesson for today is something about the oil water separator. Now, what about oil water separator? We're going to talk about the procedures or the objectives of learning the oil water separator, the operation, and then discuss how it affects our life as seafarers on board ships. So you tell them what you are going to tell them. So it's a promise. So if you promise that you are going to study cooking, do not let the class to be a lesson for dancing. You know what I mean? So there are lots of classes in the maritime that the teacher will tell that our lesson for today is something like that. And when he talks about himself, then the class ended with talking about himself. And the good news and the good stories that happened in, South America, Argentina, Brazil, etc. And forgot about the lesson for the day. And then number 2 in a lecture is you tell them what you had promised to tell them. Okay, so I promised that we are going to study the oil water separator. So let's talk about what is an oil water separator. Why is it important we know about it? What are the procedures in the operation of the oil water separator? You know what I mean? And then in the end of the lecture, so class, the session is finished. So what did we learn today? Okay, so you tell them what you have told them. And this can be in the form of summary, generalization, assessment, and then the question and answer can be very effective because it generates activeness. The students are very active. If you, Juan de la Cruz, please stand out. Or what can you say? Do you think what he is saying is correct? And when you do the questions and answers, you have to do it at random. Do not say if you have 10 questions, okay, number 1. Number 2, number 3, number 4. If there is number 11 and the question is only 10, anong ginagawa ng number 11? He is no longer listening to you because sabi niya, naku, hindi ako aabutan. Jackpot. tama, hindi ako matatanong. But if you do it at random, your students will never know when are going to be called. Why? When are you going to call them? What question will be assigned to them as a question? That's one nice thing to do. Okay? So, when you assess, you do a recap first. Do not indulge your students or asking question, oh, you are sleeping. Can you answer the question? My God. Can you ask a question for a person who is sleeping? So do not ask them because that would embarrass. Remember, you will be teaching adults. And the adults can be embarrassed. And when they embarrass, you have to face the consequence. What is the consequence? What are consequences, I should say? Number one, he may withdraw from the class. If he is a captain, I used to have a student in the basic safety because I taught basic safety courses at Consolidated. And I was a training director of Maritime Training Center of the Philippines. I have to pitch in for an absent instructor. So I have to teach for fighting, I have to teach basic safety, I have to teach survival craft techniques, PSSR, and first aid. A captain was sitting there, and he said, "Sir, can I excuse myself for attending because my classmates were my former cadets?" And I said, "No, you should be a model. So your cadets will salute you if you join them in the class because you can be a very good support to them. You can use them as, fillers of information because he has been on board, and that can be a very good example of how it is. But do not tolerate people not attending because they are experienced and seasoned seafarers. Okay? So that's how we deliver a lecture. So our next topic is going to be how do we make a lesson plan. Okay? And that will be explained later. Okay? So do you have any question? Okay, cleared now. So when you deliver a lecture, make sure that you know what you are going to talk about. And then after your self-introduction, then you have to tell, this is what we are going to talk about. So tell them what you are going to talk about. So that's a promise. And then fulfill the promise by telling what you had promised to tell them. And then in the end, in the recap, summary, and generalization, then you have to tell them what you have told them. But in generating information, because this is part of the assessment, ask them what they have learned from you. Because generally, what do students say? Do you have any question? What's the answer? No, sir. In unison. It's very common, especially in maritime school. Do you understand? Yes, sir. In unison. Okay? Because they're waiting for the last statement that you're going to say. Or the next question. If you have no question, then the class is dismissed. Okay? Pero how sure are you that they have learned from you? So when you ask, okay class, do you have any question? No, sir. Do you understand? Yes, sir. What do you understand? Forget, sir. Yun lang. Okay, so make sure that throw them back the question. What do you understand? The oil water separator. What do you mean by oil water separator? Blah, 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 blah. And then, what are the procedures in the operation of the oil water separator? Number 1 procedure. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. So when they go home, you are very confident that you are paid the responsibility of what you are going to share to your students. Remember that one of the consequences I told you, if you do not fulfill the promise that you have made, our students are our clients, and part of your salary are from their fee. Okay? So protect them. Treat them as clients and as customers, and treat them nicely. Make sure that they get the things that they paid for. Like now, you paid for PCI, right? Nagbayad na ba? Parang hindi pa yata. Nagbayad na sa'yo. Of course. Okay, so kung ako ay magpapatay-patay lang dito, okay, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo. Gumawa kayo ng lesson plan. So what do you feel? And you are a paying client. Excuse me, hindi kami nagbayad ng napakamahal para hindi kami turuan. Gets? Okay, maybe that's all for the lecture for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you good luck. Welcome to the teaching profession. I'll see you more. We'll be right back. Promise.